Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back with the rebirth. The rebirth, I'm very excited to say, of the golden age of everything. With me once again is my producer and co-host of the S&M show, or Stephen Mike show, Mike Larkin. Mike Larkin, how are we doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited. We have not done a golden age of everything. And if you guys want to listen to the audio formats, go to my SoundCloud, go to StephenMikeShow.com. We've not done one in probably maybe, like 6 or 7 years. And now 7 years later, we're back to
Has
rebirth.
it been that long?
It has. Since our last one was pre-COVID, man. It was pre-COVID. It's been a while.
I mean, so many things happened between
That and now.
then and now, and between the lockdowns and everything going on in our personal lives, and it's just been what I will explain though really why we had the hiatus. So as Mike Larkin knows, obviously there was a creative problem within the show. We didn't like the way things were going, the way things were set up, and it was a decision made by me to go on a hiatus that I had when I went on. I did not determine yet how long it was going to be. I was just trying to restructure the show and reorganize things. And unfortunately, it took a little bit longer than I would have liked. So that's why there's a lot involved, obviously, that went on behind the scenes between then and now. But I want to thank everyone who has followed the Twitter/X account, because we, even though we didn't have any episodes, we experienced some pretty significant growth, Mike Larkin, on the X account, which is at Golden Age Pod. We have over 100 subscribers now, and like Mike Larkin is saying, we haven't put an episode out in like 6 or 7 years, and yet we have continued to grow our following on that particular platform, which is kind of amazing. I want to thank everyone who's been following, and if you haven't followed, give us a follow. We'll be doing some updates and posting episode links and clips and all of that now that the show is back on. But I want to thank everyone who kept supporting us throughout the hiatus, because we always wanted to get back. It was just difficult, and everyone who stuck around and didn't completely give up on the show and waited patiently. We appreciate your patience, and we appreciate you sticking by us, and we're happy to be back. So that's my little spiel, I guess.
Well, that's the thing too. I think with also, and I'll say this, but when we started around that time period, really doing it, like, mind you, folks, more audio-based stuff, and everybody's really getting more into video, and you have great platforms like Zoom and now especially StreamYard to do this video-wise and better audio quality. So, I mean, we have everything, the right tools to give you a doggone good show, and I mean, everything is really advanced technologically speaking and just in general in the podcasting realm. So, yeah, we are here.
I mean, now that I think about it, the last episode we did, I think, was we were together at your house.
Yes, at the old house. Yep.
Yeah, and that was audio only, and that was in the days of Skype.
Yeah, still we were doing
Skype. Yeah, so it's been a kind of a long time, but I'm happy to be back doing this. Let's get back into it. So Mike Larkin,
yes,
we are talking about today we're going back to the early 80s. We're going back to 1980. Well, we're 1983 and a little before. We're going to talk about today about how Michael Jackson was not the first black artist on MTV.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, for me, I've always remembered Michael being that, but who was the actual first? Because I go back to Thriller and Billie Jean in that era.
You're not even gonna ask what happened at Different Strokes. You're not even gonna ask what happened.
Okay, go ahead. What happened to Different Strokes?
I was just kidding around. You didn't actually watch the episodes, did you?
I did, yes. Really? We're talking about Michael Jackson and I.
Well, we can talk about that too a little bit if you really want to. But isn't it? I did you a favor though, Mike Larkin. Isn't that a great episode, the bicycle episode of Different Strokes?
Yes,
we'll bicycle shop episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after you go with Michael Jackson. Okay, Michael Jackson, go.
I wanted to see if you were gonna bite.
No,
I wanted to see if you were gonna bite. That was really why I did that. Well, let's just see where this stuff goes, and
Okay.
we'll bring it around. So yeah, so there I've been reading some stuff lately about MTV and the history of MTV, and one of the biggest myths about early. I was meaning to do an episode on early MTV for this show for a long time. Actually, we were gonna do something on the birth of MTV. I had actually done a college essay, a final paper on it. And I was figuring out a way to get that into a podcast somehow, but I really couldn't materialize it the way things were going before we had the hiatus. So this is a good time to kind of talk about that. Now, one of the biggest myths about Michael Jackson and MTV, obviously, is that he was. People say they mistakenly say that he is the first black artist. He was not. Now, there's a number of reasons why people believe this. There's a number of reasons why the myth has propagated over the years. I will get to the original black artist on MTV, but I want to say that one of the main reasons that this myth still exists today is because of a guy, Mike Larkin. I don't know if you heard of this guy, but he was a very popular in the early 80s. His name is Rick James. You should really check him out. He's very popular artist from the mid 80s. He's a really great funk artist.
I know who Rick James is, bitch.
No, come seriously, on, you gotta check him out, Mike Larkin.
Come on, Eddie. Come on, Eddie.
See, we can do this stuff now with the video. We can do this stuff.
Rick James, yes.
So, freak. It started when Rick James really he went on ABC's Nightline. And ABC and Ted Koppel did a report on MTV because MTV had exploded in popularity by year 3. Struggled to get off the ground. It was really dicey in the early days, but by 83, they had finally gained some popularity. And ABC did a report on the channel and interviewed Rick James for the segment. And Rick James made accusations that MTV was banning black artists and they weren't allowing black artists to be on MTV. And that created a whole PR shitstorm for MTV. And it created a whole lot of problems for quite a while. And people, you know, some people didn't really understand fully what was going on. And really, the people who believe this, the people that still believe this, are people who didn't really watch the network or haven't watched the network in the early years. They're only going by things that they would see in the press and would hear and, you know, would see on TV, and, you know, from people like Rick James. And a lot of the time, they weren't getting accurate information, and this was one of the inaccuracies that they were getting. It was the fact that MTV was never a racist station. That was the big charge. The big charge was racism, right, Mike Larkin? Uh-huh. And, you know, that's what this is about. And the fact of the matter is that nobody at MTV was racist, and MTV never employed racist standards and practices and things like that. Because first of all, again, there was never a ban on black artists on MTV. And so what you have is a misunderstanding of how the channel looked, what went on the channel, how it was run. I'll tell you what the problem was, Michael. And listen, you can like interject whenever you want. This is a conversation like anything else, and I prefer to not just talk on my own.
Okay.
But the problem, what this really was about the format and the way that radio stations were programmed in the early 80s. Originally, I don't know if you know this, one of the reasons that I love the early years of MTV so much is that really it was programmed as an FM rock station, as a top 40 rock and roll, or what they would call AOR station, for about the first 3.5 years,
I mean,
before they started branching out more into pop.
yeah, I mean,
And people say
yeah, to
people
get
say that Michael Jackson was their first foray into really being a pop station, because he pretty much invented the genre of pop anyway.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, go ahead, go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just like, I
No, go
mean,
ahead.
you look at like Huey Lewis in the News, you look at great people that came from the early 80s that were great artists. It really started off as that rock era, and then it transitioned more. You had the Michael Jacksons, you had the Princes, you had the Rick Jameses, you had the Donna Summers, you had the Janet Jacksons. It was really different, and that's what's great about MTV is the variety. Like you mentioned, the hard rock style, very FM-ish, but that's kind of what led it to. I mean, if you supersede in the 90s from where you had like Korn, and then there's like Britney Spears and all these groups and R&B stuff, like there was that variety. So you have to have that slow transition. Okay, let's start here. This works. Okay, let's branch out to this and see what comes together and really has that synergy to make up a network and to make up the overall product.
Yeah, the big thing was that they were only going on what was popular with their audience. People don't realize that they were actually one of the most researched networks ever. Before they launched, when they launched, and right after they launched, there was a reason why they did everything that they did. And in the early days, cable is really going mostly to suburban and rural areas, where there's mostly a rock audience. Now, some people are also going to be brash enough to call that a white audience. But first of all, I don't know how you can even label any music with a color or a race.
Well,
Because that's not what music's about. Music's about bringing people together. And I think that whole idea of black music and white music is absolutely insane, first of all. Right, Mike Larkin?
I mean, I'll go with you even like this. Like, it's funny you bring this up because if you watch like the Temptations miniseries and you look at the Temptations at the time, I mean, mind you, they were going towards like, the Cloud9 and the David Ruffins and the Eddie Kendricks were gone. The days of My Girls and the Just My Imaginations were over. But also at the same time, too, when their early stages are really starting out in the 60s, segregation was going on. It's like they wanted to market them to a more white audience. But I'm like, music is, like you mentioned, very much universal. Like doesn't matter what race or color that you are, music is music. It's an art form. You can either like it or you don't, but at the end of the day, white people can listen to it, black people can use it to it, any people can listen to it. If it's something that gets your ear buds going and gets you really into the mood, or really showcase that overall aura that is music, I mean, it's timeless. It doesn't define a gender or race or what have you. Music is music.
Yeah, music doesn't have a color, right? And that's the whole thing. But the issue though was, and this is where it gets a little bit more beyond people's grasp a little bit, is that, listen, yes, they are mostly white areas, but not only are they programming for the audiences in the areas that they're going to be, they're also programming for the people that are going to buy records. And remember, at this time, it was still records and cassette tapes, and that was really the first point of MTV, was to sell records. And who's more likely to buy a record than someone who's middle to upper middle class? And in those days, there was a predominantly white segment of the population, so people would see that, and they would see how they were programming the station, or how they thought they were programming the station. Maybe hearing things in the press, or maybe only watching it for a couple of minutes. And then you make an assumption based on very little actual factual information, and you get to a situation where people think that MTV is racist. MTV was not ever racist, but they were very heavily researched, very heavily programmed. A lot of the guys who ran the network in the early days, if not most of them, were radio guys first and foremost. They knew what they were doing. And there was never any intention to stick to any one race or anything like that. Because the fact of the matter is, as I've mentioned, there were black artists before Michael Jackson on MTV. Just to go over a couple of them. There's a guy named Prince. I don't know if you've heard of him, Michael.
I've heard of Prince. When Doves Cry.
There was Gary U.S. Bonds. There was Garland Jeffries. There's members of the Specials. We can go. I can go on. There's more. I can go on and on. There was black artists, but really what this was about was that they weren't playing black music. And the people that were most of the people in the public eye that were mostly musicians that were propagating this myth of MTV being racist had something to gain from it. Either it was notoriety as producers or directors or pundits in the media or whatever, but especially in a case like Rick James, MTV would not play Rick James's videos, and Rick James saw what it was doing for the artists that were on MTV and how it was boosting a lot of these artists' popularity, and he wanted that for himself. And they had rejected some of his videos. He had sent videos in before this, and they had gotten rejected, including a song called "Super Freak."
Yes,
Super
Super
was very
Freak.
popular. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I'm aware, and that and "Give It to Me, Baby." Yes, I'm aware.
So he submitted those songs to MTV, and they were in fact rejected. But they were not rejected on grounds of race. They were rejected on grounds of standards and practices because, as I heard one person who was on the acquisitions committee, they had an acquisitions committee that went over every single video that was sent to them to decide if it would go into rotation or not. And one person of the acquisitions committee said that, yeah, we rejected it, but it was rejected because pretty much everybody in the video was half naked and it was almost like a softcore porno. Like, if you look at the video for Super Freak and you look at the video for Give It to Me, Baby, like, it's even for that time, like, it's pretty racy.
Yeah, it's
now it's pretty tame. Now it would be pretty tame. But for then, and MTV was trying to be at least somewhat of a family-friendly station at the time. For them, it was too much. And there were plenty of videos that got sent back for those reasons. There were plenty of videos for even artists that got sent back. They said that we're not going to play this unless you edit it. Now, I don't know if they said that to Rick James, but it seemed like he would have probably had to make a whole new video, and it seemed like he didn't really want to do that.
I mean, we've touched upon this before, and I'll even go back. Like, if you look at like 1959, and I'll use this because my mom loves this movie, A Summer Place, which is very much a teen romance, but it was risque at the time because, you know, the girl falls in love with the dude, but also his father falls in love with her mother. It's a whole thing. But that movie was very risque for its time. And then, I mean, if you look in the 90s, we've joked about this, but MC Hammer with Pumps in the Bump, the Funky Headhunter, the original music video was very provocative. And then he did it to the, to the convenience store, if you will, the back lot of the parking lot there. And I mean, if you even look at
that one, am I clicking?
Fuck off. So we have the overall factor of, you also go and look at the 90s with all that. Like, all that, we grew up on that. Like, the early shows of that, you had the Debrat, you had TLC, you had groups like, Jadakiss, you had groups like Mace, you had artists in different genre like Monica and what have you, and everybody's complaining, oh, they went away from the R&B style and they meant more to pop, because then you had people like the Backstreet Boys, No Authority, Britney Spears, all these talents that were coming up at the time as well. So everybody thought like, oh, well, they're just steering away from that. It's like, no, they've had all different types of artists on before. It doesn't always have to be that. Like, they had Blackstreet and Mai on there. It's just something that is very common with networks and how they always have to get it together and make it look like it has to do with color when it doesn't. It's just a different business model.
It's a misconception. There's always been a misconception about how certain people in certain companies do things and why they do things. And a lot of times it has to do with a level of business intellect that most people can't grasp or understand. And in the early 80s, that wasn't any different. I mean, people are going to believe what they want to believe. And I think it's bad. I think it's easier for a lot of people to just accept the myth than to just, like with anything else, and then to do their own research into what actually happened. And because again, like I've seen so much footage now from those first 3 years, and I would say that they were anything but a racist station.
No,
they were. I mean, in the early days, it was so bad they were willing to take a video from anyone as long as it was top 40 rock. They didn't care if you were black, white, green, yellow, blue, black to the red, the red and the brown, the purple and yellow. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter, Mike.
I mean,
Like,
look at the Jets, man. Like early days of the Jets with Rocket to You, and you had New Edition with the Candy Girls and all that stuff. Like they it's not like they didn't play like African American artists. Like, I mean, if you even look at the time, like
they always did. I mean, that's the thing is that they always did. I mean, that was after Michael Jackson, but they always. That's the thing is that if you actually watch the channel, you would know that there was never an issue with this. And it fascinates me that even to this day, that this is a myth that still lives on in American pop culture lore. Oh, listen. Say whatever you want about Michael Jackson. The man was a talented artist.
Absolutely.
Okay. The man, and that album in particular, Thriller, is probably the greatest album of the 80s.
Hit after hit, folks. Thriller, Billie Jean, The Doggone Girl Is Mine, Human Nature. Like, we'll be here all day. PYT, let's go.
I mean, that is just an absolute monster of an album, and you cannot deny his talent. Okay. Absolutely. And it definitely, listen. You can't deny that there was a mutually beneficial relationship between Michael Jackson and MTV. They both helped each other. They both brought each other to a new level.
The Pepsi commercial.
The Pepsi. You're the Pepsi generation. You're a whole.
Taste the thrill of today and live the Pepsi way. Young Alfonso.
They world premiered that commercial on MTV in February of 1984, and that's the commercial, if you remember, that he burned his hair on.
Yep.
Going down the stairs with the explosion. It was an accident. And they say that was when he first started getting addicted to drugs and painkillers. And that was when he started having the issues with the vitiligo and all that stuff. And that's when it really started to go downhill. But he was so big at the time for them that they were willing to world premiere a commercial. Like, when have you ever heard of that? Like, when have you ever heard of a network world premiering a commercial? Never. And like doing a whole special. I did a whole special on it in February 19th. It's crazy.
Right. I mean, well, his music videos were always very mini movies anyway. Like if you look from the Thrillers, from like the Smooth Criminals, like every video that he did, even bad, like was a mini movie. So you had to have this big world premiere, Hollywood it up, if you will.
It was crazy, but he was so big, and he was so big for them that like anything that he did was going to get hyped up incredibly, because he was one of the ideal MTV artists. He had charisma, stage presence, and he was a hit machine. And he understood the value, the intrinsic value of the music video. Thriller, the video is like the Citizen Kane of music videos. It set a gold standard by which everybody else, for better or for worse, had to go by for the next few years. So you can. No one will deny, and I won't deny his impact for MTV, on MTV, for the 80s, and just they were one of the two. The two of them were one of the biggest forces of the decade. But to give him so much credit as to go to, he's the first black artist on MTV, he broke a color barrier on MTV, is not really fair to history, because it's also not fair to the black artists who did make it on MTV before him. You're not giving them credit. The first black artists on MTV appeared on MTV on the first day. They were members of the Specials. The Specials had a couple of music videos on the first day. It was in the video for a song called "A Message to You, Rudy." Like half the members of the band are African American. They were the first black artists on MTV. They are the ones who deserve the credit, but never get the credit, because there's been this myth that it was Michael Jackson, and it's not. And there was so many that came before him.
I mean, do I even dare to say like Kool and the Gang and freaking like the Gap Band? Like, hello,
Well, it's interesting. Kool and the Gang had a commercial on MTV before they had a video on MTV.
Okay, fair enough.
They had a video. I think it was Panasonic. had and I'm sure you can pull this up in post too.
Yeah.
They had a Panasonic commercial from like '83, and they sang "Fantasy." You know the song "Fantasy," Mike Larkin?
I'm aware of the song.
So they had that commercial. That was how they got onto MTV for the first time, was in that commercial, which was very much like a music video, and it was very theatrical and all of that. That's an interesting thing. Kool and the Gang had a commercial before they had a video, which is something people don't really remember that much, but it's interesting. But I think the thing, though, when you talk about black artists and white artists, there obviously there was a bit of a, you could say, a ban on what you would call typical black music, if you want to go as far as to say R&B and some of these, and soul and all some of these other genres. Yeah, they were not programming the station for those artists because they started out with the specific intent, as I mentioned, to be a rock and roll station. So you're not, I mean, look, I think it was a little bit of a mistake to lean too hard onto that format. I think they could have afforded to expand it a little bit. I think they could have come up with the idea of a crossover hit before Michael Jackson gave them that idea. Like, oh, we can put this on and call it a crossover hit, and that's how you get pop music, because there's elements of rock, so it'll appeal to a rock crowd. I think you could definitely have afforded to put some of these bands like the Gap Band, and there were Stevie Wonder got on.
True.
But Stevie Wonder got on because he had the duet with Paul McCartney. I don't know if you heard of Ebony and Ivory, Mike Larkin.
You know something? When I think of Ebony and Ivory, there's only one word, and I mean one word, that comes to mind. And do you want to know what that is, homie?
What's that, Mike Larkin?
Scrumptious. Why don't we? Yeah.
Is this Michael Bolton's version of the thong song?
No, but I heard he got all the funk that Cisco missed.
But again, Stevie Wonder got on, but only got on because he was with Paul McCartney. Now, could they have put some of his other songs on there if they had expanded the definition of rock a little bit and allowed it to be a little bit more broad? Uh-huh. Sure, of course.
Sure. Now,
right?
I gotta go back to one of your points. I'm sorry. So when you say the only reason he was on there because he was with Paul McCartney, I equate this to, and this is one of our boys that we enjoyed growing up, our boy Joe, who of course this video was also on MTV with Mystical. I could tell you lying because when you were replying, stutter. So Joe at the time came out with his album My Name Is Joe, which featured stutter. I Want to Know, Treat Her Like Lady, and all these amazing songs. There was only besides the one with Mystical, because Mystical was popular at the time of MTV, Shake Your Ass, Watch Yourself. I don't know if you've ever heard that, homie. I don't know if you've ever.
My mom used to say that to me when I would go to school. Tell me to watch myself.
You could piss right the fuck off. So when it comes to Joe at the time in the 90s on TRL, there was only one video that was featured with Joe in it. And the only reason why it was on TRL because Mariah Carey was on the song and 98 Degrees was on the song. And the song was called Thank God I Found You off the Rainbow album. So I feel you. That was the Stevie Wonder with Paul McCartney. I'll equate it when Joe, the only time he was on MTV because it was a song with Mariah Carey and 98 Degrees.
But that's the thing, though, is it didn't. He could have gotten on with some of his own songs.
I know.
One of the only real mistakes they made was the format, and sticking to the format. I mean, yeah, the lasers.
Magma.
But so that definitely put them in an odd spot. And there's that famous clip of David Bowie grilling Mark Goodman over this exact issue about why don't you play more black music and black artists. And obviously Mark Goodman is just a VJ. He's not an executive. He doesn't actually speak for the network, but he's the only one there that he can talk to from the network. And he's trying to figure out what to say. And he looks like a bumbling fool because he really, all they have is the format. But again, David Bowie obviously was not watching a lot of MTV himself personally because
he was dancing in the street with Mick Jagger.
Look, by 83, I mean they were putting Donna Summer on.
Yes, they were.
Have you ever heard of She Works Hard for the Money, Mike Larkin?
I don't know if she wrote. She works hard for the money, so you better treat her right. Yes, I'm aware. Thank you, sir.
And they're dancing in the middle of the street. You know that street. This is gonna be fun. We can talk about all this stuff now on this show. That street was not blocked off, Mike Larkin, technically. So someone could have just driven down that street when all the women are dancing in the street and just pulled a GTA, Mike Larkin.
Wow. They were dancing in the street, friggin' Mick Jagger and David Bowie, like on top of each other. Records playing, dancing in the street. Dancing.
Do not mention that video ever again, Mike Larkin.
Well, I know.
That's what happened when you give someone way too much cocaine and too much money.
Well, I was doing the whole,
and also I'm pretty sure they were boycotting each other on the during the filming of that video.
Wow.
So
okay.
That's a popular rumor or a rock rumor that's gone around over the years, is that
they were borking
Jagger and Bowie were bi and had a relationship together. That's one of the taboo.
Well, I was doing the I Love the 80s Pardue thing where the comedians are making fun of how they were like on top of each other. We're dancing in the street.
Oh, that's definitely a popular rumor that they were more than just friends, Mike Larkin.
Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, again, around this time period, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So, I mean, would it shock me? No, it doesn't. That doesn't shock me, to use my own verbiage against me. But no, man, that's how it was in the 80s, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and what we got to see within the MTV time period. So, yeah,
MTV kind of propagated that too, because you're giving, rock stars a window into people's living rooms, and all these different musical stars a window into the American home, and them vice versa into their world. And they definitely, as much as anyone, propagated the whole lifestyle of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Now, I don't personally have a problem with that. Mm-hmm. I personally like to live my own life in a very similar way sometimes, but I can also, like, there was a lot of problems though too with MTV during that time. We could get into the PMAC hearings and all of the problems with parent organizations, because MTV we can go back into this because there's a number of controversies around MTV. It wasn't just this. There's a number of, especially in the early days, throughout their history, as you know, there's been controversies, but the early days, things with violence, things with, Catholic organizations. Ted Turner was a staunch critic of theirs. Ted Turner, the mouth of the South, Mike Larkin, the true mouth.
I only got one thing to say about Ted Turner. Ted Turner, the owner of WCW, the wrestling. We here at World Championship Wrestling, we here to bring you some of the best content ever. Monday Night Nitro, starting on Monday night on TNT.
Yeah, I mean, that's he did a similar thing when he started CMC, the cable music channel, which was the really first direct competitor to MTV. But I'll talk about that at a different time. I guess that's all I'll say about that for now. Is
all I've got to say about that.
It's just I feel like there are certain people who it's easier for them to talk about that time in history if they have to be a certain way, because it's a much more simpler and reductive account of the way things happen. But the fact of the matter is that that's not really what happened at all. And more people should know that, because it's unfair to give credit to someone who doesn't deserve it while simultaneously taking it away from someone who does. And as great as Michael Jackson is, this is one thing that's not actually supposed to be a part of his legacy. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Mike Larkin? Do you have any other thoughts on any of this?
My thing is, too, and I'm glad we're touching upon this, because I've always said this, and this is me personally, and again, this is networks, but it's how they vibe it up and just put it on up, if you will, hit them up, if you will, like Tupac. It's just like, it doesn't, I hit them up. It doesn't matter if it's like, it shouldn't matter like skin and everything, color and everything like that. You have to just look at it for the music that is, and for people to just put it out there like that, it's ridiculous. I know you when you think of MTV, you think of Michael Jackson, but don't disrespect artists that do come before them. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of that gets overshadowed, which it shouldn't, because everybody is here to put out the best damn music, much like today in content creation, the best damn content. So it's just like, just don't disrespect or kind of push to the side the people that came before them. So I know you want to market the way that you do, but at the end of the day, don't forget about the people that come before you. That's all.
Market.
What?
Like I'm a mark? Is that what you're saying?
No, I said like how they want to market to people.
Oh, okay. Then don't be calling me a mark, my Clark.
It's coming out of your
fucking
mark. Yes.
Don't
make me laugh.
Yeah, I mean I think that's just about it. I mean, look. The specials are a part of music history.
Uh-huh.
They were a part of the first day that MTV was on the air. That's a very select group of artists, because, like I mentioned, they did not have a lot of videos in the beginning. It was difficult to get videos on. They would take anyone as long as they played rock and roll. And the specials were on there. They were on there multiple times. There was a number of other Black artists that were on in the early days too, as I mentioned. And even there was the bass player of Rod Stewart's band was the first artist of minority descent on MTV.
Do we even go back to Chic? Like, hello freak, says Chic. Like, let's talk about that, or let's just talk about with the gentleman with Bruce. Bruce's boy there. Like, come on now. Like, fucking Clarence. Like, let's go here. Like, stop.
Well, that was a little bit after, but I'm saying like that was on the first day too. The first minority was on the first day.
Uh-huh.
Like he was a part of Rod Stewart's band. Rod Stewart's bassist they had a minority on the first. And I mean, look, they had J.J. Jackson as a VJ.
Uh-huh.
I mean, why would they hire him if they were racist?
Uh-huh.
People would say, "Oh, to be the token." No. That's if you're racist, you don't keep tokens around like that. You don't do that just for. There were no quotas in place or anything at that time. There was no reason to hire someone like that if you didn't want them around.
I mean, I'll equate it to the 90s with TRL because there were so many VJs that came in. I mean, you look at Dave Holmes, who would go on to host Say What Karaoke. You had Raymond Munns, you had Jesse, you had so many people, Q, and many people that were VJs. Tyrese was a VJ for a little bit. He hosted the countdown show for them, the hit jams and all that good stuff that really went into that MTV jams, if you will. Hit jams, MTV jams. I mean, you also had, for God's sake, Ananda Lewis was very popular as an MTV VJ back in the day. So, I mean, you have what can you really say?
There's never been racist policies,
right? Like that's all.
And I think it's also unfair to the people who were running things at the time for MTV. All of Bob Pittman, John Sykes, Les Garland, all those guys, because what essentially that does is you're calling all of these men racist. They're not.
And that's what pisses me off. And I mean, like, I get like how I'm trying to word this is because I'm like, and I've said this again, we both individually, we love everybody. You know what I'm saying? We don't discriminate. We don't do none of that. But here's the thing. Stop playing the goddamn race card. Like stop, because then a whole bunch of mess comes out there and then we get to what we have and things happen because of the people said this and that. And then it gains traction, which is wrongful traction.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that this is all because Rick James was not getting his videos played on MTV.
Uh-huh.
And this was all a ploy to get his videos onto MTV. It's because I'll leave with this because I know you want to talk about different strokes. I know you're dying to talk about different strokes, Mike Clark. I know you're dying.
Not really, but we'll go there.
Here's my beef with Rick James. If you cared, and some of these other people, if you cared so much about what they were playing in the early days, where the hell were you for the first 2.5 years?
Uh-huh.
Because remember, the first 2.5 years, they weren't really getting a ton of traction yet.
No.
And they just started the I Want My MTV campaign. They were just starting to grow. But there really wasn't a whole lot of viewership there. Where were you in the first 2.5 years? You want to know what it is? You didn't care. None of these people cared because they didn't think they could benefit from it. All of a sudden, they cared because now there was something to be had. Because now they realize you can reach all these people now, and that's nothing more than what it was. That's what this was all about at the end of the day. And it's disgusting that Michael Jackson and Rick James are dead, and yet this myth still continues because people are just very misinformed and uneducated about how things really were and about who was actually running MTV at that time. And it's a real shame, honestly. It's just a real shame. But that's all I have to say about that.
And now we're going to talk about different strokes, which we weren't even going to talk about. You made me watch this episode, so I watched.
No, Mike Logan, aren't you happy? Oh, by the way, my Heather Thomas shirt, by the way. Aren't you happy? Aren't you happy you watched that episode, Mike Larkin?
Well, I will say this. It is a classic from 1983, so this does fit into the golden age of everything, the time period. So
I mean, isn't it, Mike Larkin? I did you a favor either way because I got you to watch some classic television, Mike Larkin. I mean, come on, dog. I mean,
yeah. So, yeah. Beef in your taco. So I watched both of these parts. The Conrad Bain at the end. Hi, I'm Conrad Bain, and tonight's episode is a very sensitive subject matter. We hope you enjoy the show, and it brings, for information and awareness, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I will say this, and before I even talk about the episode.
Now, Conrad Bain is the dad, right?
Yes, Conrad Bain is the dad. So before I even talk about the episode, people nowadays, they don't do enough of these, like, special episodes type of vibes. Like back in the 90s and the 80s, they would talk about eating disorders, they would talk about drugs, they would talk about what have you, they would talk about sex, baby. But what they would not nowadays, it's just like, this is too much, we can't talk about this. It may be difficult to talk about, but things need to be talked about and brought out to the open, because unfortunately stuff like this does exist. In the terms of child molesters, like if you look at this episode, like, Mr. Holden brings the kid to the back. Don't tell your mom I gave him all that candy. You see Arnold and Dudley go to the back. They're taking pictures. They're looking at Murphy the mouse. Dudley gets his shirt taken off, like the whole nine. Like, it's a very important of just seeing like what type of people out there. I said to you in our chat, like, it reminds me of the 90s when I was watching Smart Guy, and they did a similar episode, much like we saw with this episode in the 80s, but the internet. It was based on the dude was giving them games, and he was going to their crib, and they,
I remember that.
You remember
that episode? Yeah.
And they're doing
grooming them. They're grooming them, Mike Clark, with the video games, though.
The video games, but like that was also because the internet was very popular and was starting up in the 90s. But in the 80s, they didn't have that, so it was he gave him ice cream. Didn't want to tell Conrad Bain the dad, so we hushed it. They gave him wine, trying to get the wine off his breath, so he chewed the big old wad of gum. So I mean. When I look at that episode now from 1983 to 2024, it still holds up because of the people that we have in this world, and it's a shame. But also, number two, it does give a lot of people, a lot of kids and families information that it's difficult, but you need it. I think we need more of that in today's day, of just information that it's difficult, but you need it, instead of just shying away from, stuff that can be difficult to people.
You talk about how they don't really do stuff like that anymore. Yeah. Like they did it more in the 80s and 90s. I think one of the reasons why they don't do it anymore is because remember, a lot of those episodes were very ham-fisted and were overdramatic and really didn't handle things with the proper
guidance.
Handling everything with kids' gloves is not the best route. You have to really just be direct with it and put it out in the open. And this was still trying to be very like Seventh Heaven pounded this shit into the ground.
Oh my God.
Where everything has to be a very special episode and everything is this overblown thing.
Yeah, when the kid got caught smoking pot and all that. Yeah. Oh.
And the thing I hated about that show too is everything ends with like the kids have to tattletale and everyone has to be a rat. Everyone in that community is encouraging everyone to be a rat. It's like,
right. I'm going to be honest. All right, you're going to make me go here. As someone who is Catholic, I will say this. That show, fuck off. That show was over dramatic as fuck, and I hated Seventh Heaven. Every time that would come on, I would switch because I saw a little bit of it as a kid. Again, this is from being sick and staying home, and fucking Seventh Heaven reruns are on, and I'm watching this, and I'm like
this is just the most stupidest garbage.
It's garbage. Like, I'd rather watch friggin' Boy Meets World where he takes his father's alcohol and he drinks it because he's friggin' tore up for the breakup of Topanga. I'd rather watch The Fresh Prince where Carlton is taking the amphetamines at the dance and he starts dancing like a nut. I'd rather watch fucking Laura's friend get shot in Family Matters and teach about guns. I'd rather
watch. I'm so excited. I'm so
scared. I'd rather watch Jesse take the caffeine pills than freaking watch 7. I got all these caffeine pills. So I'd rather watch that.
And Stephen Collins, the dad, Stephen Collins, busted for being a pedo. That's right, Mike Larkin. Diddling a 14-year-old girl. That's right, Mike Larkin. That's what happened to him.
Fuck Stephen Collins. But yeah, no, I hate that show.
He got sold out by his wife. Do you know that?
I did. I remember the report, yes.
His wife was an actress as well. Faye Grant. She was in a bunch of stuff in the early 80s as well. Mm-hmm. Greatest American Hero.
Believe it or not.
Howard Castle, McCormick Pilot. A whole bunch of great stuff. She recorded him secretly talking about this, I guess, to like a friend or like their therapist or something, and then sent it to the police as evidence, as like a confession. She sold him out and divorced him when she found out about that, which is like, wow. Like, give her credit.
Yeah.
You know, because like that's probably one of the most insane parts of that story is that he got sold out by his own wife.
Well, he was a scumbag too, and
he was a scumbag. No, absolutely
a scumbag. But like, I'd rather watch Growing Pains with Matthew Perry, God rest his soul, where they talk about the drunk driving. I'd watch anything over 7th Heaven. I'd rather watch Different Strokes, The Bicycle Man, over that because, and again, going back to that episode,
that's a great episode though. Like, that's good, and 7th Heaven sucks.
Yes, it's a very good episode just because of the way it was taught. You know what I'm saying? This was going against the grain at the time. Like Gary Coleman did his thing. Shavar Ross, who would go on to be I think it's Shavar Ross. One of those. He would go on to play Weasel on Family Matters. If I butchered the name, my apologies. But like, he played his role as Dudley. Like, everybody in that episode, it worked, and it teaches you a lot of things. Like, the 2-parters were the big thing. Like, I like the fact it was portrayed because unfortunately stuff like this does happen, and unfortunately stuff like that does still happen. I mean, we got To Catch a Predator later on, but this was like early.
Half of Hollywood is this way, Mike Larkin. This is why Song of Freedom or whatever that movie was is such an important film.
Yes.
Because the whole industry is this way almost. Yep. Like, it's insane. And by the way, amazing performance in this episode by Gordon Jump, who plays the bicycle shop owner.
Mr. Olin, yep.
He is from WKRP in Cincinnati, one of my favorite shows, another classic that...
Are you living on the air in Cincinnati, homie? WKRP.
Cincinnati, WK. Come on, Michael. You know I know that song.
I know.
Cincinnati, WKRP. Have we talked about that, by the way, on this show yet?
That'll be on a future episode.
We'll do that on another episode. There's some stuff to talk about there. Great show, legendary show. So he really, really makes that episode because it's a very creepy performance, right? I mean, his performance is like spot on.
He's like, hey, whoa. Yeah. And then he's jumping and he's dancing. He's like, all right, guys, he's gone. We got him. And then they sneak out the back door. And he's like, don't you tell your mom that I gave you all that candy. And he's like, let's play trampoline, guys. Let's jump. Woo. He was so good at playing the creep.
Hey, I've never seen this cartoon before. Whoa, what are those mice doing? They're only wearing their underwear.
Oh, come on, guys. It's adult.
Now they're not.
Now they're not. We're all adults, guys. Come on.
Remember Gary Coleman's face, Mike Larkin, and their face go.
I only got one thing to say to that. As I get back into the frame here. Hold on.
You got sniffles, Mike Larkin?
I do. And they were banging.
What's the matter, Mama? You got a cough? Catch a cold?
Oh, God. My dad did that the other day when my mom was sick. He's like, we're just going to go all Forrest Gump on you now. You got a cough, you got a cold. And I'm like, Jesus. And I thought of you immediately because we do that.
I'm dying, Forrest.
First of all, since we're video, we're going to do this. And I'm probably going to edit some of this because of my sniffles. But I'm dying, Forrest. Like, so happy. Like, I don't have to take care of him anymore.
So I've never, we've talked about this before, but I've never seen someone so happy to have cancer, Mike Larkin.
Well, you have to understand, like, I mean, she did a lot for him. Like, when you have sex with the principal at the school, your
Yeah,
mom sure cares about your schooling, son.
she did more than her fair share, Mike Larkin.
Oh,
Let's face it.
absolutely. Get him the proper education. Oh, yeah.
She she worked very hard on her own two legs, on her own two knees, on her back, on her front.
She worked hard for the money.
She worked. That's a good one. That's a good tie-in. He works. That's right. Mike Larkin, like Donna Summer. Make her dancing in the street, Mike Larkin.
They're dancing in the street. Dancing in the street. So, yes, for performance by Gordon Jump, for any of those who've not seen it, he plays a great creep. He plays just like he's trying to be funny and give the one-liners, but then he's like, oh, but he can really relate to being a kid. It's almost like he's not an adult. And I'm like, oh.
Kind of sounds like Michael Jackson, doesn't it, Mike Larkin?
Shut up. Don't do that. Well, all right. And I'll say this about Michael
Well,
Jackson.
are we just supposed to ignore? I kind of made him seem kind of decent in that first segment, but
I will say this.
You can't pretend that stuff didn't happen.
Well, I will say this. I've always said this about him. Do I believe he did it? No. Do I believe he acted like he was because he legit felt like he was Peter Pan because of his childhood? And if you saw the Jackson's American Dream, he was beaten and they didn't really have a proper childhood. They were always on the road. They were traveling, like going from state to state, like, and just, I think his childhood was so screwed up that he related to being a kid because he never actually had a childhood. He really didn't have the luxury of being a kid. He was just like, constantly on the grind. So do I think he did it? No. Was his relationship with kids weird? Hell yes. Like, why can't you share your bed? The most loving thing that you can do is share your bed. If it's your child, Michael, like,
see, this is the thing with me. Like,
what?
We know that he was weird. We know that he had mental issues.
Oh, yeah.
We know that he had a fascination with childhood. Mm-hmm. And there's also stories where we know that he lacked a certain set of morals.
I mean, putting his kid over the balcony.
I mean, Mike Larkin, not even that. Here's a story I don't know if you know. I didn't know this till very recently.
Okay.
Do you know how Michael Jackson came into the Beatles Masters tapes?
How?
So, if you remember, again, Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson were very good friends in the early 80s.
Okay, I think Paul McCartney may have touched on this on Behind the Music, but go ahead.
And if you remember, they did a song and a video on MTV together called Say, Say, Say.
Say, 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 yep.
Very successful song, hit song, great tune, very cool.
I'm crying. Ooh, 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 ooh. All right, I'm done.
And they struck up a friendship. Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. And a couple of years later, Paul is trying to maybe take him under his wing a little bit, give him some advice. And he says, what you really need to do is you have to own some of the most money you can make in this business is owning masters and owning your masters and owning, maybe other people's masters if they become available, because that's how you make a lot of money. Well, what Michael did was he turned around. And in 1985, I believe, the Beatles Masters became available, and Michael won the bidding over Paul and everybody else for the rights to the Beatles Masters tapes. Uh-huh. And that ended their friendship right there. So,
see that, yeah.
So this is someone who obviously lacks morals. He's not mentally there all the way. He has a fascination with children. You can definitely see how many people are willing to believe that he did some of the things that he was accused of.
No, right. I get it.
Because he was who he was and had a track record of doing some very questionable things before that. So you got to be fair in all of this, Michael.
No, I'm definitely fair about it. No, I'm fair about it, but I'm just giving you my opinion. I understand that people say that, but also the fact when he's going to court and he's standing on top of the limo, just like dancing and saluting everybody. I'm like, Mike, this is not the time to be addressing the fans.
What are you doing? Like, what are you doing, buddy? Like you realize this is a serious court case, right? Like this is, what it's like, Mike Larkin?
What?
It's like Hulkster saying he's going to sweep the leg on Gawker.
That's not what he said.
drop the leg, whatever he said.
You
I'm
should have dropped the leg on Gawker, brother.
like,
HH.
oh, this is kind of serious. HH, exactly. This is kind of like a big court case, like kind of a serious deal. Maybe you don't want to be like, talking like that. Like, this isn't a joke.
The R. Kelly court case was even worse because his nut bar fans are just like, just going right up to them like, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And because these women are so brainwashed by fucking R. Kelly, yeah, that was even worse. That Michael Jackson's like, that was just like, okay, Mike, it's serious. Get your ass off the limo, man. This was just ridiculous because the R. Kelly fangirls who believe that he didn't do what he did, which we now know he's in jail for. And of course he did it, but fuck, like those girls were even worse than fucking Michael Jackson fans.
If I've been telling you to watch the Boondocks for years, the cartoon series,
Okay.
The Boondocks. If you don't watch the whole series and maybe you just watch a couple episodes or even one episode, watch the second episode because they look at the R. Kelly court case. I mean, this is back in 2005. So it's not the more recent stuff, but they look at it and they do a critique of R. Kelly and the court cases, and it's very interesting, and you'd probably get a kick out of it. You'd probably like it. There's a lot of music and stuff going on. There's one with Usher in it too, McLaughlin. You might like the one with Usher also.
I will have to check.
You know what, Tyler Perry? Tyler Perry hates them for that. He tried to sue them.
Oh my god. Okay.
It's a great show, McLaughlin. It's a great show. You really should watch it.
Okay. If there's 3, I'll check out. It's those. Cool. But no, that's
second episode is R. Kelly.
Second episode's R. Kelly. Okay, I can remember that now. But here's my thing: like the R. Kelly thing is just like, and obviously, and we'll go back to Different Strokes in a second here. But R. Kelly is just again great music, like we talked about on the Steve and Mike show. Like I Believe I Can Fly, I don't consider it to be the greatest R&B song ever. I agree with Return of the Mac, maybe the greatest R&B song ever. I like I Believe I Can Fly. It's one of his best singles because he was started off talking about Sex Me and Your Body's Calling and Bump and Grind and his earlier hits from the 12 Play album. You Were Dare I Say You Remind Me of My Jeep. So the whole thing of him just transitioning, doing an inspirational song for a Michael Jordan movie, Space Jam and the Looney Tunes, like that's really what put him from, okay, he's not just talking about sex songs. I mean, looking for the Ali movie, The World's Greatest, I'm the star up in the sky, like that stuff there. I wish that I could touch, and I wish that I could hold you now. Like he could do like different meaningful songs. Step in the Name of Love.
I wish,
braid my hair, like that, like Step in the Name of Love. It's the remix to Ignition, Hot and Fresh Out the Kitchen.
Mama like, rolling that body, got every man in a wishing.
Sipping on coke and rum. I'm
like so what? I'm drunk. It's the freaking weekend, baby. About to have some fun.
Bounce, 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 bounce.
Like I can't see that's the other thing. Like, and I've had conversations with my sister even about this.
Yes.
At the gym.
Okay.
At the gym, maybe even even in the same like 20 feet away, even from the woman I was checking out. Listen.
Wait a minute. You were checking out a woman at the gym. Okay.
I understand that R. Kelly and Michael Jackson did all this crazy stuff.
Yes.
I understand that they had their problems, and you have to separate the artist from the art. But Thriller is still a banger. He did make. I always say this, right? He did make Thriller.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He made
R.
bangers.
Kelly did make Ignition, the remix to Ignition, Mike Larkin, right? I mean, you can't deny, like, if any of those songs come on, even now,
you're jamming.
People are gonna get up out of their seats and shake their ass, Mike Larkin. Like,
let's be clear. So I'll say this: albums, Thriller, the Bad album, the Dangerous album, like the History album, like the Invincible album. Michael Jackson even got to be there, like Tits, the Off the Wall album. R. Kelly, 12 Play.
Living off the wall.
Living off the wall, my man, living off the wall. So R. Kelly, 12 Play. Amazing album. His second album, self-titled, the R album, which featured I Believe I Can Fly and Down Low, featuring Ronald Isley of the Isley Brothers. The TP2.com, which featured I Wish, and Feeling on Your Booty, and A Woman's Threat. Like, and then you get to, of course, the Chocolate Factory, which has songs like Step in the Name of Love and Remix to Ignition, Hot and Fresh Out the Kitchen. Like those albums were like synonymous with R. Kelly. I mean, we could even go to the later albums, the Love Letter album, but
they're
still,
bangers, right?
they're
I mean,
bangers.
that's the whole. It's like these are all bangers. Like
when you hear
no one and
yeah.
no one. We've had these conversations before, but no one is condoning, or if we listen to that music, no one's accepting that what they did or was allegedly did.
Well, they did an
is
interview.
okay.
It's funny. I'll add on to your point. They did an interview with a DJ, and they asked one of the DJs at this convention. They go, "What is the one song that you wish that you can play that you can't play anymore?" And he goes, "Any song by R. Kelly." That's what he said. Like any song by R. Kelly.
But like that's the thing. Like if you put those songs on, like people are still gonna dance.
Oh, agreed. It's
just like it's tough, man. Like you don't want to, because people will look at you if you listen to those songs sometimes. Like they'll look at you like, oh, so this guy likes child molesters, huh? Because
okay.
he's listening to Michael Jackson, and it's like, no.
Chuck Berry got arrested for filming women peeing, and he sang some of the greatest songs. Go Johnny, be good. Hey,
well, Chuck Berry's just a legend. I feel like he did that stuff when he was like what, like 67 years old.
Yes, he was older, but still, like
at that point, you just like they were grown women though. At that point, you should just be like, Chuck, we love you. You're a legend.
Yeah, but that's kind of weird.
Maybe he can maybe have some fun. Maybe no. You know what? I'll get in trouble. I'll get canceled for saying that though.
But no, it's like
it's like just let him. It's not like he's just having a little film. It's
we're just rubbing on my nipples and just
we'll just have a little.
That's disgusting. Whoa, I don't even know what I just said. So
me and your sister sometimes we like to get a little adventurous in the bedroom.
That's disgusting.
When we first got married, she couldn't keep her hands off me.
I don't know what it is now. She won't even get it. Shit, I got water all over myself. So
he's having himself a psychological episode.
Cuckoo's nest. All right, so that's different strokes. Yes, so
different strokes.
Bring it back to the golden age. So the Bicycle Man, yes. If you've not checked out the 2-part episode, we pretty much gave you a rundown of what it is. Give me the rundown. So we gave you Gordon Jump's amazing performance, Conrad Bain just talking his ear off, wanting him like to sign for the bike, giving him the ice cream, watch the adult movies, taking off their shirt, making them flex their muscles,
playing Tarzan.
God,
what creeps me out about the both those parts is like, especially when shit starts getting really awkward.
Yeah,
like the awkward laughter.
Oh man,
I'm pretty sure that was like a live audience, and you can tell that like they're very uncomfortable. Like they feel like they should laugh, but like
it's
they're
like
not sure.
Yeah, you can tell. Like if you watch that, and I'll say this to the folks because I noticed this too. When he's like, "Oh, we're gonna have lots of fun together, you and me. I like you, Arnold," and it's just like they're laughing, but it's like I can't. Why I should not be laughing at this? You know what I'm saying? Like I should not be laughing at this.
All right. Who ate my lollipop?
I mean it. But yes, like if you've not seen the episode, folks, I know it's 41 years old now, but it holds up. And everybody did their thing. Like Dana Plato and Todd Bridges weren't going to tell on him, but they told him about the wine because they blamed it on Dudley's father, and the other one blamed it on Conrad Bain. It's a very important message, and just by
the way, like how bad do you feel for Weasel, Mike Larkin? Because when they come back home and he's got Dudley's dad is there and they're all talking about it, and Arnold's talking about how like he got away but Dudley stayed. And, you can tell that like both Dudley and his dad are both like, oh shit, Dudley got raped.
What? Oh well, you're even gonna go.
The dad is just like, oh no, my son got raped. Oh fuck.
Well, wow, rape is not funny. I do not condone what he just.
No. We're not laughing at the rape. We're laughing at the situation. And not even really laughing. Where I'm noticing the situation, how it was a little bit like Arnold's like, oh yeah, I got free, and Dudley's like, huh, not me. And him and his dad just like standing there with like their heads down. I'm like, oh fuck. And his dad has to hug him. It's like, I still love you even though you got raped, son. It's like, oh my god, like that's one of the coldest things to ever happen to a minor character besides like the friend in Mr. Belvedere. When he gets AIDS, they just give the friend AIDS, and he's just like, I got AIDS, but I'm all right. I'm like, what the fuck?
But I'm okay.
It's like 8.
But I'm okay though. So
yeah, no, exactly. I can't make it up.
Okay, so we're gonna preface the scene before. Oh my god, my son got raped. All right, hold on there, pal. So he gets to the bike shop, and they're like, "Oh my god, is Dudley still here?" He's like, "What are you doing? Is this kind of sick joke? We make sure he doesn't go anywhere." Then they go into the back room, and they're looking for him, and he comes out. The toilet flushes, and he's out there with just his shirt off, and he's like, "How you feeling, son?" And he goes, "Mr. Holden he gave me a pill. He said it would loosen me up." And then, he's like, "Son, are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't think I'll be okay." The thing is, it started out fine. And then Mr. Holden, he tried to touch me. And he's like, "Oh, son, I'm sorry, but I still love you. Thank you for telling me this." And I'm like, "Oh,
I still love you even though you got raped, son."
Yeah. Even though, we don't know if the point of the scene is they got there just in time before he could really do anything.
Well, Mike Larkin, you don't know for sure, though.
True, but he said
you don't know for sure. And you can tell. You can tell by his dad. He's like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah. No.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not really funny. We don't think rape is funny.
No, we're not laughing at rape, folks.
It's just kind of a slightly humorous situation where like you can just like tell by like, oh no, my son might have got raped.
Well, also, if you look at A Summer Place, like I mentioned, 1959, the infamous scene that people talk about is like the mother slaps Sandra Dee because she thinks he had sex at the hotel to meet up with the guy. And she told her, like, look, not everything is about sex, even though you make it like a dirty word. And she slaps the bejesus out of Sandra Dee, and the Christmas tree just falls over.
Mike Larkin.
Stop it. She falls down from getting slapped and with the over dramatics. But no, we're talking about the fact like that scene is funny, but it's funny how it's just like, oh my god, you could tell by his face, he's like, yeah. And they left him alone, and he's just thinking like, I gotta have this conversation. I got to have it. But yeah, no. Yeah. But it's unfortunate because that was one of his precedent roles. I mean, besides being on Family Matters as Weasel, the friend to Eddie Winslow, that was his big role as Dudley in that scene. That will always stick with him, and just going through that and acting it the way he did, which was perfect.
Yeah, it's a very, very solid episode through and through. Classic episode. Classic, looking for my chapstick.
There's a good kind of car sick. There's Ford Maverick, yes.
And it's one. I think it's powerful when you view it as an adult and as a kid, because it's very important. It has a very important lesson for both kids and adults, and I think that's why it's so powerful. And it's still so powerful after all these years, because it's still like it's one of those things that's like still relevant today. Like it's not just something that is just relegated to that time. It's something that parents and kids today still have to deal with and have to be on the lookout for, because there's still creeps and perverts all over the place. And
even with the addition of the internet now, how we can find out who's catfishing people, there's still people out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, these people, and that's the thing is like these people, the whole point of that episode, one of the points of that episode is that these people are hiding in plain sight. And, you don't realize how many there are until, you go on that, what's that one website, Mike Larkin, with all the sex offenders? And you type in your address where it like lists all the people in your area.
Oh, I forgot.
And it's like your whole neighborhood like lights up like a Christmas tree, and you go, oh my God. Like,
I know what you're talking about, like that reverse search kind of deal.
Yeah. People do that, and it's like, oh my God, there's like child molesters everywhere. No, not child molesters, sex offenders. Let's be fair. Yeah. But like that's the whole thing, is like you don't realize who a lot of these people are a lot of times until it's too late. Because they're hiding in plain sight.
Right. They also tried to like assume he was gay in it, but it's like, no, it's just he has an asphyxiation with children, and even though he wouldn't want to hurt the children, he's actually hurting the child, and he doesn't even realize, because he thinks, oh, he's just buddying up, like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, Yeah, there was that element to it too.
What was he doing? What was he doing, Michael?
Yes, so yeah, but that's all I got to say about that with that episode. But yeah, I think we
That's all I got to say
sorry
about
about
that.
that. I think we
Yeah, no, that's it's a great episode. Different Strokes had a couple of episodes like that too. We can talk about the other ones that they did too. They did the drugs one with where Nancy Reagan was on it. They
yes.
did probably the next one. If we do another Different Strokes one, there's another messed up episode where the traumatized parents kidnap a kid and make him pretend he's a dead kid.
Oh, I gotta find that one now. You gotta send it to me. I'll watch that.
I'll look it up. I'll look up the name of the episode because that's another two-parter. And very quick tease: the plot revolves around. Actually, it was another one of Arnold's friends gets kidnapped by a deranged, absolutely out of their minds couple because they're just beyond stricken with grief and sadness and depression because their son has died. And now they're trying to go around and kidnap kids, trying to replace their dead son. It's such a dark and messed up episode. Like, it's really creepy. And that's one that doesn't get talked about as much as the bicycle shot episode, but that's another creepy one.
All right. That's another one to add to the list for future Golden Ages. I'll definitely check that out. So yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed the rebirth and the return of the Golden Age of everything. I'm glad that we're doing this again, and I look forward to doing our next episode, which we'll find some things to talk about. I'm sure you're going to have some more topics, and I'll react, and I'll give you my analysis as well, sir.
See, we didn't talk as much about sex this episode, Mike Larkin. Isn't this much better, Mike Larkin?
Well, yeah. If you guys go back, and I'll put them there so you guys can get an idea, like a general consensus.
Don't go back.
Why? Come on, man. It's not that bad. Stop it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't say it. So we had the fact that it was mostly audio, but we went to Heroes of Sex, as we used to have, and we would play music. And yeah, he was really, enthralled in the Heroes of Sex.
But the whole problem was that whole format was limiting, and no one wants to hear me talk about that much about girls for.
Oh, he talked like 30 minutes about your girl. What's her face? Oh God, what the hell was her name?
That wasn't this show. That was another show. Did I ever talk about Heather Thomas, Mike Larkin, on this show?
I think you might have.
Did I?
Yeah, with your girl Heather Thomas rocking the shirt. Yes.
Much big ups to my girl Heather Thomas. Big ups, Mike Larkin.
You are my favorite motherfucker. I told you. So yeah. Heather Thomas
is why, Mike Larkin. Honestly, if you want to talk about hottest actors of the 80s, it's her.
Okay.
No question.
Fair enough.
That's all I have to say about that.
So before we close this out, promote the Twitter where you can check us out on Golden Age one more time, and then we'll get.
Okay. So if you have not yet followed us on Twitter, or X as it's called now, at Golden Age Pod, we're going to be a little bit more active now. We haven't really done much as far as posting lately, but it's going to be coming back up. And the other channels are there too. At Steve, at Real SM Show 1, at SNHE Pod. Wait, what's the other one? On at Real Isles Pride on X, and give him the Facebook pages, homie.
S&M Show Podcast and S&M Network shows. You can check it out. I'll put the Facebook there as well. We haven't posted a lot in a while, but we have them there if y'all want to check it out. It's connected to StephenMikeShow.com. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, whatever you can get us on your audio platforms. The links will be in the description. I haven't really put out a lot of the audios there because we're more video now. You can check it out on my YouTube, Mike Larkin92, S&M Show 1 on Twitter, MCL92.
SM Show Clips on YouTube.
I was about to get to that.
Oh, okay, all right.
God, give us some of your thoughts. MCL92 on the Twitter, Larkin_92, and MLarkinMB on Instagram. Stephen Mike Show Clips.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
On YouTube.
I was getting to that. And you can check out all of our stuff and subscribe to this Son of a Gun's YouTube channel for the Islanders Pride. And you can check out all great hockey footage and shows and whatnot. So, yes. Links will be in the description for you all to check out, even the audio platforms, even though we're more video now and on the YouTube front for my YouTube. So, yes, but still go back and listen to those audios.
And there is a blog, right? Or there was a blog. I don't know if we're going to bring that back or not. I'm debating still whether I'm going to bring the blog back or not. Yeah. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, we
Oh,
did
I
have
don't
a
know if yeah, but we will have this.
Hold on, wait a minute. Pump your brakes, man, because I actually do have that. That's the old golden age of everything.blogspot.com is what the old one was. But yeah, you haven't blogged on that in a
I
while.
think it's still there, but I don't know if I'm gonna reactivate it or not because
Okay.
I just don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it. But maybe. But you can still check it out. I think it's still up if you want to check out some of the older stuff from way back when.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and so we're gonna try to do this more regularly now, and hopefully we'll get back to the swing of things and let us, this is gonna be available like all the other ones, all the other podcasts, wherever you get your podcast now, right? It's pretty much on
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
every platform now, pretty much.
I
So
mean, I haven't
that's
really been
big.
I really haven't really put a lot on the SoundCloud. Like, I haven't put up a lot of the latest shows. It's mostly I've been putting it on my YouTube. But if you want to go listen back to it, I'll try to start doing more on the audio front. Go to soundcloud.com/MCLarkin92 and StephenMikeShow.com. But mostly subscribe to the Mike Larkin 92 YouTube channel and subscribe to the Stephen Mike Show Clips YouTube channel and subscribe to the Real Islanders Pride. So, yeah.
And thanks everyone for listening. If you got this far, we appreciate it, and we're happy to be back. I'm happy to be back, and like I said, we're hoping to do this more regularly. So this is going to be the new format. This is going to be the new flow of things and style. So we hope you enjoy it. We hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you all for listening. Be good to yourself. Stay healthy. Do eat your vegetables. Say your prayers,
brother.
HH.
Stay groovy, stay retro, and we'll see you in the next edition of the Golden Age.
Remember to get the poison out.
That girl is poison. If I were you, I'd take precaution. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Love you, Heather.